I invite you guys to do also is think about what you do in your company and how you can add value to this program as a workshop, because it's really for the IMCP partners to contribute to this exercise, to educate our community, to try and have a bigger conversation with our clients. How do we help each other grow our businesses? How do we help our customers grow their businesses? And what are the tools that we can help each other with? Because at the end of the day, what happens is we all have a job, we all sell a product or a service, and we kind of pigeonholed into that environment, and that's all we think about. This is what we do, this is how we make money, and we do the hard slog. But we don't think about everything outside of that that can make this a better conversation. And that's the whole point of this workshop, is to kind of give you an education of how to broaden that, how to help your customers make money as well as yourselves. So, to begin with, I just want to show you a little bit. This is our agenda. Breaking it down into two sections. What is Dynamics 365? It's not just a tool exercise. We'll go into a little bit of showing you exactly what the look and feel is like. But more of a strategic thinking play from a business perspective. And then at the second part of the session, I want to discuss business processes. And for all of you guys here today, I want to keep it collaborative. So if you've got questions, if you want to figure out things that you don't understand, this is what we're here for. This is for really your time to say, hey, if I do this, what's the effect of this? If I bring this in, how's it going to fit into this? Because you have to have that awareness of how everything fits together in this ecosystem. Next slide. Okay, so again, the purpose of the group is just really to bring everybody together, utilise the tools that we have. Everybody's got knowledge that I don't have. We're experts in our field, you guys are experts in your field. How can we bring that to the table for the benefit of our customers and also the benefit of our own businesses? So I'm going to show you, this in a nutshell is Dynamics 365 today. And all of those components is really how businesses are run from start to finish. There are components, more or less, that belong in each of these segments that is how a company produces revenue and how they make money today. I'm going to show you a little video so you can get a clear understanding. In a nutshell, it's a bit techie busy, but it will give you a conceptual idea of what D365 is. That, in a nutshell, is Dynamics 365. Any questions? It's very busy, and there's a lot of components to it.
Are each one of those aspects of the thing a standalone in and of themselves, or is there like a central hub, and then each one of these will like snap into some kind of central management system?
So D365 is separated into two components. There's one called the front end, which comprises of everything that you see. Previous page, buddy. Everything that you see except Business Central and Finance. Finance and Operations is the only separate license that you would buy from Microsoft for D365. The other license comprises of everything else. And what I mean by that is that you've got sales all the way through to when somebody gets invoiced, which goes to finance, and then finance is a separate application, but it's built on the same platform as all these other things for Dynamics 365. And I'll go into further detail to show you all the components, but in essence, there are 26 products in Dynamics 365 that make up one application. That's a lot of things to absorb in your mind, but in essence, most companies only use 1 to 5 of those applications in a business in any given day. So very few companies that use all 26 products that belong to D365. That's what gives them the flexibility to pick and choose what elements they need for their business and how they run their business. Some people do construction and project work, so they will use project automation and maybe sales as two modules from the D365 CRM component of it, if that's how you want to categorize it, or the front end, to run their business.
And none of those others are any extra or anything like that?
No. All of these come, if you buy a license, a full license from Microsoft, everything except for finance and operations is included in that license. Our job is to kind of separate those out, the modules that they don't need, and slim the solutions down. And as a company grows into different areas, then we can just light them up and make them available to them.
Any pushback when it comes to making sales? Well, but I don't need all this stuff here. Isn't it less expensive if I only need one or two things?
Correct.
Yes, exactly, so you can trim it down, so even if, so instead of getting a full front-end CRM license where you get all the different modules, you can buy one module at a time.
Okay,
So
okay.
it allows you to
All right.
piecemeal
All right,
that, and
makes
also
sense.
has light user licenses as well.
Right, but you will buy those in segments if you just got customer service, or you just got field service, or you've just got sales. But within those, you have a bunch of other products that support it. So it's not just here's sales and it's a Rolodex database, and here's customer service and it's just taking orders. And I'll go into everything that's included with that. Go to the next slide. So this is traditionally how we thought of Dynamics 365 CRM. This is what everybody thought that would compete with Salesforce. That's the traditional conversation that everybody had, that when we want, Dynamics 365, it's just going to be taking care of the sales component. It's going to have opportunity management, contact management, sales order processing, and quote management. That's how we run our Salesforce. That's how we generate business, and that's the most important thing, and that's what everybody shops for. So that has been CRM probably since the inception, from when Microsoft developed CRM back in 2001. This is what it was, and that's all it consisted of. In today's market, this is how Microsoft has expanded to be the leader in front-end applications for businesses, because all of these components are now included. So it can support any type of business, any industry, any size, anywhere in the world, on any device. And what that really means is that you might have a business that only relies on one or two or three of these aspects of these modules, that they need a functionality to happen. They don't need all of these. So our job is to go in and say, what kind of business do you have? How do you make money? And what have I got to help you support those processes that you've got currently running in your business? So for example, if I'm doing, and supply chain is huge, so we'll leave that one to a little bit later, but if I have a company that is purely, I introduce myself to a customer, I've got a lead, I work that lead, I put out a quote or a proposal to them, I show them my product, I've got these several meetings that are going on, and then I've got to try and bring it to a close, and that's how a customer generates revenue. Well, what this tool does, from an aspect of managing a business, is saying, okay, if I have to go through that process of selling, what is the most efficient way that I can track the activity? How do I make sure I've got good salespeople that are not missing gaps, and why we're not selling deals, or why we're not closing this business? What are those reasons? And because of this tool being so robust, we can now track the path of how people communicate with their products and services to a customer. It's a very accountable product to say, how many touch points do I have with a client? When's the last time I spoke to that client? Did they buy from us in the past? What did they buy from us in the past? How can I upsell them if they only bought 6 months ago one of my products and services? And this is what the system allows us to do. It helps us to follow the evolution of how we deal with the client and the movement of those cycles. So with that in sorry, yeah.
I come from the financial services background originally, and several attempts to integrate CRM systems multiple times. What is the adoption rate that you get when you implement, like a year out, 2 years out? What kind of adoption rates do you get? Because the information that people are putting in is only as good as if they put it in. If not, you
Correct.
have nothing to calculate, you have nothing to base your analysis on.
Right, and that's a very good point, and this is probably going to go into our second version of this meeting, that what that entails is really how your methodology and your processes are set up. Because when we have conversations with a client, it can be, okay, you've got these manual processes and we want to get people who have done their job for 22 years to start using technology for the first time. They're like, "Ugh, that's not going to happen." Well, us as a company have to go, okay, well, what do we have to do to make sure and create habits, which is part of our change management strategy. How do we create these habits? And it's usually creating some process automation. Like to say, if somebody's got a client, they put it in the system. What's the next step of that cycle? Do they have to call them 3 times in a week? What are the rules that we have to say to somebody that they have to do? And all they have to do is click a button. They go, I made that call, click a button. I don't have to write on a spreadsheet, I don't fill out an Excel spreadsheet. Make it as simple as possible for the end user is the goal.
Two main components that make that happen are, number one, the management decides what the business process is, or their sales process, for example. And it could apply to customer service, it could apply to any process you have in each division of your company. But more clearly, the CRM helps you define those clearly for a company, for management. Once that's defined properly and clearly, then it provides accountability for salespeople, customer service people to follow that process. So part of the thing that I think a lot of companies overlook is the clarity of their business processes to begin with, and then configure the system to take somebody through that process. Just like a call center where they have a script where they say, what's your problem? What product is it regarding? And based on whatever product, there's certain questions that need to be asked, and those are tasked through the business process flow. If that's not clearly defined, you have people not wanting to use their devices properly. It's too cumbersome to put in data. It doesn't work right on their phone, etc.
And it's one of the hardest things, especially for salespeople, is that they want to do the least amount of work with the biggest amount of results, right? I don't know a company on the planet who has a sales force where people in sales are the most resistant people for user adoption. And in order to get them to do something, you have to make something tangible and accountable. And usually that's the bottom line. If you don't update your opportunities or go through the process and update the system so that as a company we gain all the analytics that we need, you are now going to get compromised on your commissions and what you get because you're not tracking it properly or accurately. You're just throwing numbers against the wall and they don't match up to what accounting's doing. So how do we make that accountable from a commission standpoint for a salesperson?
It's really meant for managers to be able to be accountable to the C-level people to really, provide accurate reports and that sort of thing and provide accountability.
Am I hearing you right, that there's like tools that you have that will help you to build the rules? Because
Right.
having your business rules, that is this little teeny statement of a few words that encompasses, that's the
It's
secret.
everything. It's
That's
everything.
the secret, yeah.
That's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
When Todd comes up and starts walking us through the actual system, we'll be able to show you some examples of how things can be configured to align with what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. How come I don't see a customer success on this, or is it embedded somewhere? Like, especially when we're talking SaaS models.
For
you know,
marketing, customer success, in what respect?
And
Customer
after the
service.
selling, the adoption, how happy the customer is about this?
Customer service, like customer service issues.
That's part of it. So
Right.
now in the SaaS industry, there's the post-sale or the pre-sales and the post-sales. So
Right.
if there's no consumption of the service, then you don't
Correct.
get paid. So that's an area that you need to track.
Right,
Is that
and
embedded
part
in
of this
something?
process comes down to reporting and analytics, and we'll go through that process of how that happens within Dynamics 365. Because understand, you've got marketing components, you've got customer journeys that you can track. There's a lot of automation that's built with this. It's really about the end result.
Okay.
So when we go and meet a customer, it's like, from a management perspective, we want to understand the outputs. What is important to the company as a whole? What are their objectives? What are their analytics that they need to see? Do they have a growth model of 10% this year for every part of their business? How do they restock inventory appropriately pre the selling cycle of what they want to increase? How do we measure all this? Because something has to be tangible post-sales, always, right? There has to be accountability as to how successful you are and where things are lacking and where improvement needs. Otherwise, the company doesn't know how to create the big strategy of, okay, I can't throw a budget out there with some kind of analytics to prove that they need to grow by 10% or they need to decrease their staff for some reason. Those decisions have to come through the power of how you use the system.
And a lot of times what we end up seeing is we'll start with the project to do some analytics and Power BI dashboards, some like simple things. Oh, I just want to see this. And then it kind of turns into like, oh no, we're good on our processes, our sales process, everything's fine. And then like the analytics will start coming up and they're like, well, why can't I get this information? Or why doesn't this, why can't I see that? And it's like, well, you don't have it. And so then it kind of goes back, okay, maybe we do need to fix our business processes and work through the tool a little bit more. So yeah, we see a lot of that, starting with the analytics.
Yeah, Jody, just a quick question. I'm curious, because do you have a way to, from an audit perspective and a regulatory perspective, be able to generate, let's say, policies, procedures off of the automated business rules and everything? So literally somebody coming in to audit can say, okay, I understand the overall flow, I understand the business rules, financial regulator can come in and challenge whatever they need to challenge.
Yes, and that's a very, very good question, and it's a very hot topic these days, especially for SaaS products. And one of the things that Dynamics is very good at and has done from inception is create auditing down to the field level. So every level of data, every field of data is auditable, whether it's working through automated workflows or how it's tracked through the system. Another layer of that is compliance. I mean, we are a federal contractor as well, so that's a very important part of the solution, is to know that you have to put compliance layers and you have to understand what that is. And it's a layer of automation that flows above, say, approval processes, workflow processes, business processes, and business rules that the company has. And then you overlay these compliance processes to make sure that the data points from each aspect of the processes that you go through are captured. And that's how we create the auditable reporting.
Good thing about it is everybody's a little different in what they need to audit.
Yeah.
So it allows you to configure those rules yourself as an organization, make those choices, and also down to user level, like Jody mentioned, even permissions.
And there's different layers and different, industry compliance measures that you have to step up to. Out of the box, though, Dynamics 365 does conform to like HIPAA compliance and traditional industries that are out there that require that straight out of the gate. Like, we can't engage with our product if Microsoft did not support that compliance. Because we'd have to go back to them and go, hey, you need to put this in, we need all these certifications, blah, blah, blah. So that's typically how that works. I want to go to the next slide quickly. Okay, so this is a very, very busy slide, but it's probably the best example that I can show you guys about this ecosystem, especially for the IMCP group. Because everyone who does and runs and works in a business that is part of IMCP fits into this ecosystem. And as I said, whether you're an Office 365 partner, or you're dealing with managed services, or you're a telco, or you deal with ISVs, or you're purely an ERP application partner, we all fit together. But the overarching entity, as you can see there, is Dynamics 365. We absorb all the stuff that you guys do and how you fit in, because some of you are pre-sales to us, where you're setting up the infrastructure for a client that's going on a SaaS model. But what does that mean when you're coming in and taking them off on-premise and putting them in the cloud for their servers? What does that really mean? What kind of conversation are you really having with the client when you're doing that? Are they just saying, we're going to move to the cloud and that's what we're doing? Well, the conversation should be, you're moving to the cloud because your business is obviously growing to a level that you have to be more flexible. You have to be more versatile in how you are supporting your business. the overheads of doing on-premise solutions. Some people like them, some people don't. But why are they transitioning? So the bigger conversation is, how are you making money today, Mr. Customer? How are you generating revenue? If they go, well, and that's a really tough question, believe it or not. If you go to a customer and go, how do you make money? It's a weird question to them because most people go, do you have a sales department? How many widgets do you sell? What kind of services do you do? And that's the typical question that most people have in sales. But if you bluntly said to your client, how do you make money? Their brain starts turning because it's a different question. Because then they're going, well, we sell this. Well, no, how do you make money? Because if you break it down into compartments of a business, every facet and every department in your business has to make money. Well, you might have 10 people in your accounting department doing Excel spreadsheets, and you have a great automated sales team. But that revenue is offset by somebody doing manual labor on the back end in accounting, doing Excel spreadsheets because they have no automation or a system to support something that should be efficient to match up where things are. And there's always this inefficiency somewhere in some department, whether it's customer service who are taking calls over the phone, or it's warehousing and inventory, or it's salespeople that are still looking at post-it notes on their dashboards when they're driving around. Those things are very common. And as much as technology looks fancy and it's great and it's over our heads, people today are still in that mode. There are tons of companies that are still in that manual process somewhere in their business. So when you're asking your client, why do you need to set up your infrastructure this way? There's a reason, because they're trying to offset an efficiency that's happening somewhere else in their business.
Just think about somebody that's an account manager, for example, that's out on the road all the time dealing with accounts across the country, and they're going to be stopping into an area where they have 3 or 4 customers, but they haven't had necessarily the time before they left on their trip to go do analytics on where is this customer with their invoices, or where are they with their payment history, that sort of thing. With Power BI, which certain partners of you guys specialize in Power BI or artificial intelligence, AI, as your expertise, that's where it can be brought into Dynamics 365 dashboards for someone to pull up on their phone when they're on the road and say, okay, oh, this customer, they're 3 invoices behind them. Maybe that's something I should bring up while I'm visiting them, or something of that nature. Or they tried to order this 3 months ago and it was out of stock, but now it is. I'm stopping in to tell them. I might as well bring it up and tell them. I can see it in the dashboard through Power BI, through other tools in the Dynamics ecosystem that can be implemented into the system.
So the main function of this, I mean, your kind of business that you do, what primarily is your business that you do?
We support accounting firms.
You support accounting firms. In what capacity?
We are a managed service provider, providing infrastructure for them and basic software support. I have no idea how to do accounting, but if the accounting software generates an error message, I better know how to fix it.
Right. And that's exactly right, because you've got a skill set that is very unique, right? You may not know accounting, but you know how to support what they need to function properly. Right? And you know how to expand and help them grow their business from their side of the fence. So what I'm saying to you is you don't necessarily need to know everything about our product and what we do. Conceptually, when you have a conversation, it can lead to other things that they haven't thought about. And that's the idea of what this group is supposed to be. It's like, how do we have a better conversation?
And how do we help our clients find more opportunity in their own business, more efficiency through the proper type of stop gaps for things, that mechanisms like that pop up? I mean, how do we help them avoid or handle those things quicker with our services in our intellect, to be able to help them see how they can really measure these things and monitor them?
I went to a customer, actually a partner, the other day, and I said to them, have you ever asked your customers how they make money? And they said, well, they produce things, they packetize them and they ship them out. That's how they make money. This is what they make a product, they sell to customers and they ship it out. I said, okay, so how do you make money from your customer? Well, they use our shipping tool that we have, and that's how we make money. So the more that they ship, the more money we make. So I said, you make money on how much product they actually produce. That's how you make more money. I said, how about having a conversation by asking them or helping them to understand how they can make more revenue? So in turn, you make more revenue. What's that conversation like to you?
Yeah, in other words, if a company does a lot of shipping all the time, and they just want something that is reliable, something to track shipping, shipments, and that sort of thing to make sure they're delivered on time and all the rest of it, what about the cost of that shipping? If you could find a way to help that client that ships all the time save money on their shipping while being more efficient, tracking it more efficiently, that's gonna be another win for them. That's another source of revenue for them that they may not have been thinking about. It's how do I save money for my customers and ourselves to save money on shipping?
That's one component, but the other component that we have a conversation with is if your customer could do more production and have more efficiency in how they actually go from the sell to ordering to shipping. That's a different conversation of you adding value to them, saying, hey, you know, do you take orders over the phone, or does somebody go out with scratch paper and go visit people to take orders, and then they come back to the office and somebody manually enters that into the system before it gets shipped? Or do you have a conveyor belt of things just spitting out and everything's perfect and fully automated? The 99.9% response to that is there's some manual process that their customers going through and not being as productive of producing those orders as much as they need to. And fulfillment times can be shorter. So how do we have that conversation with the customer? It's like, hey, Bob, I know you do the shipping through us and so forth, but how do you take your orders? You know, who does that? Do you have like a customer service department that takes orders? And they'll go, oh yeah, you know, we've got 3 people that sit there and take orders. Well, what if you could automate some of these steps that you're doing? If you just ask them the basic steps of A, B, C, how do you do this? And you know that there is a manual process in there somewhere. It's like, how about, have you considered this, or do you use a system or any kind of business process to support what you're doing? What if I could help you or introduce you to somebody who could help you increase that productivity or shorten that timeline for fulfillment? Somebody can have that conversation. And that's a bigger conversation that you're opening up, because now you're adding value to the customer, and it's not about you, it's about putting the emphasis of what's important to him back on the table. And that's what we're trying to create here in the conversation. To make you aware that every business on this planet runs differently. I don't care what industry it is, what they do. They could all do this, sell the same thing. They all run their businesses differently. And the conversation is, where do you do manual processes versus automated processes? And you can have that conversation with your client so quickly and so easily, even if it's not your core service and product that you sell. You can find something to go, how can I add value to this customer to help him make more revenue? In turn, I make more revenue. Because you're all part of the cycle of the ecosystem of what you've got embedded in the customer. It's what he's invested in. So with that, I'm going to have Todd come up here and show you some of the innards of D365. Show you the user interface, show you how it's structured. It's a it's quite simple actually. There's a lot of configuration, there's a lot of, not a lot of customization these days in Dynamics 365. So as we go through it, we'll prod you for some questions.
General question before we get into more details. So we all know what a CRM is, we all know what an ERP is. So how is Microsoft marketing Dynamics? What do they call it? Is it, what I've heard is it's a CRM ERP system. Is there a better way to describe it?
Yeah, it's about the platform. They've decided to bring ERP and CRM onto a singular platform called a common data service, right? So it's all, when you implement it all seamlessly integrates and flows together. But for basic awareness, it's CRM on the front end and it's ERP on the back
So
end.
We're gonna go through some of the detail of how they market that as well after Todd's finished.
Okay.
So we'll get into some of those details as
Okay.
well.
Good, can everyone hear me? Okay, so when you first log into Dynamics 365, and this is utilizing the same login that you use for Office 365 and the Microsoft products, it's all single sign-on, all managed through Azure AD in the back end. And you'll notice that there's a whole slew of products or what are called apps. So the way they've kind of restructured everything in Dynamics 365 is to have everything be considered apps in there. So CRM, is broken out now into a lot of different components such as customer service, sales, field service, project service, etc. And those all can be considered different apps. You can add additional apps to it. You can purchase third-party apps that plug right into this through the Microsoft App Store. And now, in the last couple of years, they've really been developing what are called Power Apps. I don't know if you guys are all familiar with the Power Apps platform, but that is effectively developing your own app that you can now just plug into this same ecosystem. And it all runs off of the same common data model, the CDM. And so you can just spin up a new database, a new app, and customize all of that like right out of the gate. And it's all kind of coming into this same framework, this same interface right here in Dynamics 365.
Does everybody use Office 365? Yeah? Okay. So you can launch this directly through Office 365 as a single sign-on, as Todd mentioned.
Yeah, and everybody gets access to this when you have Office 365. You probably used the little, they call the little waffle menu there. And Dynamics 365 will pop up in there. And when you go to that, then you'll get this kind of app screen. If you subscribe to it, then obviously you'll have this. Otherwise, they'll give you other opportunities to kind of do a trial and things like that for a new app. But that's really, where they're going with this as far as like no longer thinking of, Dynamics 365 as a CRM or as a ERP. It's just a whole ecosystem of apps, of all these different types of apps that can do all of these things out of the box or whatever you want if you design it yourself out of a Power App, which can be a just blank canvas. They literally call it a canvas app that you can drag and drop fields onto, and then using the common data model, you can push and pull data from any data source, including online, any other application you have. I mean, they have connectors, hundreds and hundreds of connectors out there that can pull in data from other applications, or using the data gateway, you can pull in data from an on-premise application or database, SQL database, Oracle, SAP, whatever. Doesn't matter. You can push and pull that data, build your own little interface, and off you go and publish it right here in your own app. And nobody's the wiser. Everybody thinks it's just.
And you're able to manipulate data and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I'll just open up the probably most common one, Sales Hub. And again, if you spin up, so there's different, like I said, there's a Canvas app and there's also a model-driven app. If you create a model-driven app that actually builds off of the framework that this is built off of in D365 CRM, and so if you spin up a model-driven app, it makes you conform to more rules, but you also get all the functionality that's built into this, and you can build your own little app very quickly. And it'll have tons of rules and a whole framework behind it to kind of support it, but it'll look and feel exactly like this. So if people get familiar with this interface and you just want to build a little custom app, you can do that. It's like days, not weeks or months.
And can an ISV build something and start selling it to plug in?
Absolutely, yeah, and you can publish that on AppSource and get it, off and running. There's a process to go through to get that done, obviously, but yeah, absolutely, and Microsoft is encouraging that. you know, to really encourage people to build those off of this framework. So you can just plug it right in without any issues.
Like build a screen here, are you just basically going through and like dropping like an object onto the thing here and then you can establish properties for it, what you're connected to? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, and you can do one or multiple data sources, so
Okay.
you could have 3, 4, 5 data
Any
sources.
data source within the ecosystem?
Or, like I said, using
Or
the
you
data.
can attach outside?
You can attach outside, there's connectors, and then there's, so they have, if you've seen any of
As long as your
the,
machine has got access to the thing, you can pull it in and do.
as long as you have a username and password that can access the data, it can pull it in. And like I said, on-premise databases too, SQL Server, Oracle databases, all the different types of databases you can imagine.
What's unique about the Canvas app?
The Canvas app is, again, the model-driven app conforms more to like the rules that you have in here. So you're a little more restricted. A Canvas app is literally like a blank canvas where you can define everything. It takes a little more time to kind of build it that way because you don't have as much of the structure in place already, but you get full freedom to like drag it up and like pull in all kinds of things and make it look and feel, you know, however you want. Whereas this one, you kind of are restricted to the look and feel that this has if you use like a model-driven app. But you can get a model-driven app up and running way quicker. So you can see they have the dashboard. So this is very frequently used. This is the out-of-the-box dashboard. And additionally, you can integrate Power BI dashboard straight in here. And it'll actually just pull in like a list like this. It'll look just like you've got a dashboard built into your system, but it's actually pulling all the information in and all the screens in from Power BI directly.
And Power BI as an analytical tool can pull from any source. So if you've got data tables that are sitting in ERP that you want to expose in Dynamics 365, and you've got other tables of data that you want to produce into a dashboard, that's what Power BI's strength is. It's very agnostic in the sense that it can take data from any structured table and bring it into a dashboard so everybody can see it. So
Without having to go through physical integration to the other application.
So if you're a salesperson and you need to know if a customer is on credit hold, that's usually coming from accounting. You don't want to pick up the phone and call them or send them an email and go, is this client on credit hold, or, you know, are they approved? Have they been pre-approved so we can sell this product? You want that real time, and that's what Power BI can create in a dashboard for your salespeople. They're not digging into the accounting system. They don't have to waste their time. That data's already presented to them. So that's a small value and representation of what Power BI can do for you.
Yep. And these dashboards can be completely configured to and customized however they want and see the information they want, how they want it. I'll just open up a record here just to see, you can see quickly the detailed record view, which will show you, you know, whatever you clicked on, the details of that particular record. And again, in addition to the information that's being displayed here, this is your kind of traditional CRM type of account information. And using other tools or data integrations such as Power Automate, you can pull in data from other applications. Additionally, you can also embed a Power App inside of one of these. So if you do have kind of a small need and you don't want like a true integration, you could do a display only type of thing from another application and build that really quickly and just display it in the corner here or something like that from some other application, whether it's in the cloud or on premise, you know, backend database, whatever. You can pull that information very quickly, easily as well to display it in here.
Curious, is this a demo system that you guys created, or is this something that Microsoft has?
Microsoft has this readily available. If you go to demos.microsoft.com, they have a whole
It's not a demo thing.
yeah, it's like it's a really great tool if you haven't visited that. You can spin up these demo orgs really quickly. They make it accessible to all partners, Microsoft partners, and you can spin them up and, you know, play around with them. And they're 90-day trials, so you can kind of mess around with them as long as you want.
For anyone who's not a partner, that just that's just a potential customer or whatnot, you can do a similar thing. You can spin up your own demo trial too. And it's got some data in there.
for them to be able to play with, and they get, I think it's a 30-day usual, 30-day trial, but you can extend it an extra 30 days, so they'll give you up to 60 days if you're not even a partner, so.
Yeah, it's good when customers are still trying to plug and play and wanna have a feel, and they're used to, say they're coming off another system, if it's a Salesforce or whatever, and they wanna dive into this, they can do that. And there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube as well that they can follow along.
And this is an out-of-the-box integration. Again, I didn't do anything to this org, I just spun it up the other day. And it's got an integration directly into SharePoint. So SharePoint Online, I want to store my files in there. You get all the benefit of a content management system like SharePoint, and I can just go in there and it links them directly in here, and people don't even know that they're in there. They're just uploading documents as far as they know to this account record, but it's actually storing it in SharePoint. You get all the revision history and all the controls that you want, and locations that you want in there, but it's actually storing it. If I open this up, it'll actually open it up in SharePoint.
And the beautiful thing about that is with D365 or any SaaS model, there's always storage, right, that you're concerned with. So if you've got a document repository like SharePoint, it's actually its own repository separate from Dynamics 365. So that's the beauty of including this and utilizing that within the application itself if you wanted to store files. And the other thing as well, different from SharePoint standalone, is that when you attach it to an account or you upload a file to a contact or an opportunity, it creates that structure, the file structure that CRM has. So it's under an account, it's under a contact, it's under an opportunity, and it stays in that structure because the hierarchy starts at an account level. So anytime you want to look and see where these attachments are, you can look up the account and know that the document is related to it and it's an opportunity file that's related to this account. So always understand there's a very symmetrical hierarchy that exists with CRM, and SharePoint just assumes that.
We've had a lot of companies that we've worked with over the years that have always been afraid to attach documents to their CRM or their system because it just bogs it down over time and it starts becoming clunky. And that's exactly what Jody's talking about. SharePoint allows you to store documents and have access it from CRM, but it's not stored in CRM, it's actually stored in SharePoint. But you wouldn't know it as a user because you access it right from the account record or the customer case record or whatever that record is that it's pertaining to, and it's right there.
They also have integrations with all types of different solutions. You can pull them in and install them straight from the Microsoft App Stores. One of those is the Adobe Sign, so they already have this plugged in, so you can have e-signatures and stuff like that built into your quoting process or ordering process or what have you, using like Adobe Sign for those kind of things, and it plugs in right here seamlessly into the application. They also have, I mentioned, Power Automate and the flows, what are called flows. So you can easily do, again, using those same connectors that I was talking about with the Power Apps, you can use those connectors to push and pull data or create automations and workflows between D365 applications, and any of your third-party, kind of applications that you might have out there. There's, like I said, hundreds of connectors to those, as well as internal databases and stuff like that if you want to push and pull information using flows. And you can initiate it straight in here, or you can have D365 trigger those when I do a certain action, when I check this box, when I fill in this information, then it sends a notification out, it goes and pushes that information into another application you have, what have you, like all those kind of things. You can build those out, and it's all drag and drop and type of stuff. It's not like you need a developer to come and do that anymore.
So with this, like you get the basic sales module, right, when you open up D365. And when you saw field services and when you saw project automation, there are other entities, modules that have a subset of different items that you can actually utilize as part of D365. And this is the customer service hub, which is a little different look and feel to the sales side.
Yeah, and it has more of the customer service side of things. If there's open cases, you could even have this if, you're more in like manufacturing or product, you can have like order history and stuff like that all tied to that. So if a customer calls in, they've got access to their order history. Oh yeah, I see you did that. You ordered that last week or whatever, and you can kind of go through that.
curiosity for your display here, what does the color coding mean?
These, it's just, I don't think there's any,
Yeah, that's actually icon for a planner, right? This is planner, right?
no, this is not planner. Looks similar.
I got totally confused.
Yeah,
So those are icons for, those are dummy icons.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
They're just
P
kind
happens to be purple and. E
they-
happens
yeah,
to
they
be
just-
Icky and.
I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to the coloring.
Okay.
Is that something that you can play with, the color?
Yes,
as far as
actually, you can put
Gotcha.
client logo there.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
can put the, you
Oh,
can put the
perfect.
cloud logo.
Yeah.
So those should be actually client logos.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do each of the applications have an API as well to interact with the data?
Yes, yeah, all of this has the huge framework in the back end for API integrations, all that stuff, it's all readily available, there's a full SDK for how to like integrate.
Create your own web app or whatever.
Could you talk a little bit about business process flow? I know there was a question earlier about, that what you're going to go into next? Okay, because that pertains to the question that was asked earlier about, you know, how do companies get their users to adopt a system, and how do you get them to actually put the data in that they need to put in there so you can get the reports you need, right? That's the big trick.
Change? No way, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that.
So question is on that dashboard, is that only with a new release? Because the Canvas based had a different view, right? The planner view, can you go to my one? This one?
Yeah.
This view is only for the latest release.
It's been around for a while. It depends on what, I don't know what you're referring to as far as this release, because this has been around since the 9.0 version, which has been around for about 2 years.
Just over 2 years. Actually, it was a year ago, last October, right?
You know, it came out, the 9.0 technically came out in
That's right.
July
That's
of
right.
2018.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
I think we use.
But yeah, some people haven't yet leveraged the new, what's called the unified interface, which is what, you know, they're unifying across all the different apps.
Yeah, Manish, a lot of people haven't updated to this, even though it's been around.
That's what I was just telling them,
Yeah.
they're not using the hub features.
Right,
so
yeah,
exactly.
You need to, I was just telling you, you need to move over to the hub. If
Yeah.
Well,
going
they're-
away
if
by
you're
October.
online, yeah, if
That's
you're
right.
online, they're pushing everybody by October.
By October, you're gonna
Yeah,
know
we didn't
that,
get
whether you like it or not.
update yet. So
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
You have it, you're just not using it.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you come to those sessions.
Okay, you have it.
it's in there, you just
Yeah,
haven't,
it's in there.
you haven't loaded it yet.
So yeah, these have these, some of these kind of different features within the different apps. And within any of these entities, including, you know, a lot of times we see this mostly starting out with the sales process, just because that's, you know, typically where people start, but they can be applied to any sort of business process that you have. It doesn't have to be sales related, this is in the cases, so this is customer service. And they use this, what's called the business process flow bar, which will allow you to identify the different stages within a business process. And it'll tell you where you're at in those stages. So right now I'm at the resolve stage. And then at each, you know, these targeted items, which is what stage you're on, you can have defined specific fields or information that is relevant to that specific stage, or that may be required to, you know, fill in information in that stage before you can move on to the next stage.
And management can set the rules to say, you can't take this to the next dot, to the next target until you've done this, and you put this data in there.
And you can have all kinds of automations behind that, as far as, you know, moving up probability, you know, which feeds into your sales forecasting and, you know, your pipeline. You can have, like, you know, all kinds of analytics around, you know, for customer service side of things, like how quickly you're moving through things, where are things getting hung up, you know, all that kind of information can be derived from these stages that you're setting.
And just a thing about these stages, especially when you're doing customer service, if you have SLAs, so you have specific criteria that you have to meet for your clients, you can put all those in there so that there's a 3-hour window. There's even a timer clock that's attached to this, so if you have to respond to a ticket or a case in a certain amount of time to meet your SLAs, you know, that is automated in their system where you can just add the clock when a customer service rep is in and it starts ticking. So it'll tell them if you're overdue, and then you can set alerts and parameters around those rules if somebody's under a specific contract. And that can be purely automated out of the box for this in configuration.
And is that, so if the person doesn't reply, does it send alert to the group? I mean, we have that
Yep.
set.
You can set up all those
all
types
sorts of rules like that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, all those rules are really easy to set up and build out. But yeah, like this does tell you right now, just
Mhm.
it's active for 34 days. So hopefully you don't have something open for 34 days for a customer, but since it's a demo system, we'll let it slide.
But each one of those circles at the top has 3 or 4 fields, and there could be as many in each dot as you
Yeah.
want, but those are critical fields to be filled out, so that later on, you don't go look at somebody's pipeline and whatnot, and not be sure about where they are. And if they're trying to close something out that hasn't been filled in, they can't do it.
And you can easily assign different business logic to these such that, like in this case, I'm on research, and if I need to escalate this, that I'll go and that'll make it go down a different path. So there's different business logic that you can build in there to kind of split off in different paths and different logic depending on, you know, what you're filling in along the way or type of information you fill in along
And
the way.
again, that relates back to compliance questions. So if you're on doing a business process flow and you want to say, I need to get this approved, or this needs to go to the compliance department, then it takes another part in the automation stage for notification and through that process. And until those steps are completed, then that stage for the original person can't be moving forward.
I assume there's some kind of mechanism built in as well that would flag if there's something violating policy. For example, we've surpassed an SLA date, that escalates to senior management, or a day or 2 before an
Correct.
escalation.
The idea is to let somebody know before it surpasses it, right? So a day or 2 before, it's.
Automatically triggers a pink slip for an employee.
A severance
The
package.
beauty is too, if you have some senior management that doesn't want anything to do with your system, they wanna be able to have you send them a report or send them a notification, you can automatically notify those people, and they have to click a button on the email they get, and it automatically updates CRM for them, and they don't even have to even go in the system.
And additionally, they include some, looks like we've got some data missing in this, but, they do have some built-in type of, KPIs, and they call it customer service insights for the customer service side. They built some nice dashboards, kind of preset, and obviously you can build, this is all built on Power BI really in the back end, but, you can build these out further, but these kind of come out of the box, ready to go, so,
And a lot of people don't know that these things exist.
exactly.
So they sit there and they run in real time, and customers don't know they're there.
So when you say you can, and is that what HD Dynamics does? Do you guys consult the customer about their business processes and
Correct.
bring that into the system?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
That's what
do
you do.
primarily 2 things. We do assessments with companies to help assess what kind of lay of the land they really are needing, what they're looking for, and then we also implement, so we provide the consulting along with that, and support.
And we'll go into that a little bit later too, because I've got a whole slide of roadmaps and whatnot for you.
By the way, this also comes with out-of-the-box support. So if you have customer service and you want your clients to be able to log into, submit a case or self-service without having to buy licenses for them, it comes out of the box, it doesn't even cost you, you just configure it, set it up. That's what we use for our customer support.
And it's really changing colors, putting different headers and labels on it, but all the data into that portal feels directly to the CRM, so nobody needs to be like a web developer to put this portal together. That's how simple it is. All it does is display the data for the client, and they can submit requests,
And they can
have
track
a follow-up
it, they
with
can track the
you,
progress.
and so forth.
Yeah, and this is again kind of the app homepage for apps and so forth. So these have all the apps that you have installed, and then they give you, these are just A lot of them built by Microsoft, on the Power Apps platform, just to kind of give you a flavor of some of the stuff that it can do. But you can easily plug these in. If you just hit the Get It Now, it'll literally plug this in. You just kind of connect up to your data and off you go. And you can actually start using it. So it's very slick. But they've kind of given you a feel for what some of the stuff you can do with Power Apps, and just plug it into this.
So there's an app up there called Book a Room. So as an example, if you think of like WeWorks, everybody's heard of WeWorks, everybody knows they can rent a room or a space or an office or whatever. So we had a client, or have had a client since 2010 in TechSpace, and they are in Aliso Viejo, and they lease out office space, whether it's for one person or 50 people. They've got campuses all over the country. And one of the things that they asked us to write back in 2010 when it wasn't out and apps weren't around was book a room, because they have receptionists on every floor and every campus, and people travel, and people need to book rooms online, right? Whether it's 4 people, 20 people.
Rooms and accessories, do you want phones, do you want water bottles, do you want whatever?
Yeah,
in the room?
and so
Like
a lot of
business
money.
office, not.
Yeah, a business, or a
Not,
boardroom, a
or
boardroom.
not bed.
No, yeah, not,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
all for business,
Like,
yeah.
like booking this room at the Microsoft
Do you
office.
have phone?
Okay,
Looking at
okay.
a conference room, yeah.
Yeah, so they spent a lot of money with us to build this custom app to do it. So now you can see how technology is advanced. Microsoft puts this Book a Room app that you can plug into D365, has all that capability for your business to book a room, calendarize it, know that you're traveling, whether you need to project a bottle of water or whatever you need in the room, that's available to you. And this is how we see businesses transforming.
And partners can create those sorts of apps too, to plug right into CRM.
Yeah.
Yeah, it plugs into CRM, but it also plugs in the back into
Shared.
Exchange.
Stuff.
So it actually plugs in on the other side to the Exchange, to your calendar, so that, you know, you can like assign resources and such in Exchange. That's what it all plugs into, so it's pretty cool.
So Brent, if you knew that there was something unique about accounting firms that wasn't addressed somewhere, that you wanted to build an app to plug into this, that's exactly what you
Well,
could do.
you know.
And then you could sell it through the app.
Well, and
store.
Tim, maybe this doesn't sound like the right thing to say or whatnot, but quite frankly, I don't care what they're doing. What I wanna go to them and I talk to them and say, do you have any clients that have got this problem? I'm picking their resources for things like that, because that's usually what gives them the ability to make more money, is if they can go to one of their customers and say, hey, I've got a solution for your problem. Now they're becoming a hero, and now they wanna feed me to everybody else that they've got.
Yeah.
You know, one of the classic things in the accounting business is time entries, right?
Mhm.
Time entries. is
Oh,
a big
yeah, time and billing
huge-
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and this is what we do in our own company as a living. We
You
do,
provide professional services, you gotta keep
it's
track
time
of
and
your time.
materials, right? We gotta track like every 15-minute increment of how we service a client. So that's automated for us, and this is part of the package that now is included in D365, where somebody can use this little module for time entries. It feeds into
We
projects.
spent a lot of money building it ourselves years ago.
It feeds into projects, like if they're dealing with a specific client, they call it a project in accounting. And is allocated to that, it spits out an invoice, it's all done and itemized, sends out an invoice, customer gets paid. So those little nuances, you know, leave requests, time entries. These are things that people have built because they've been annoying in the past because they've not been part of the feature set. But now that they are, everybody's starting to pick up on it. And they're usually like, if they're not built in out of the box with D365, they're apps that you can just load and utilize.
Yeah, and
So
here,
the thing that you were talking about, is that, one of these apps in here, what is that one called?
Time entries is on projects.
yeah, we haven't published an app for that yet on the app source, but,
So you do have your own apps,
Yes.
HD Dynamics?
Yeah, we have for years because that's how we run our business, because it was never available on D365 as a module to utilize.
Yeah, I meant on Dynamics 365.
we don't have them
No,
on
we
the
have
app
not
source.
put it on Dynamics.
Not yet. Is that something you're considering on doing in the
Yeah.
future?
There's a lot of little things like that that we want.
Yeah.
How many,
This is
roughly how
not-
many apps are there to support 360 Dynamics?
Hundreds, thousands,
Hundreds.
Thousands?
Yeah.
probably thousands. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's only been.
Microsoft's pushing for more and more on this, so
Yeah.
this is, they want partners to develop.
Yep.
And Chris, it's only been, you've only been able to do that for like the last.
Couple of years.
Couple of years.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, relatively recent.
Do you have any app there? You guys,
Right now, we don't have any apps. We've been working with people who are building Azure apps for the Azure platform, not these small apps.
We've got a few in the works right now,
Yeah.
but nothing ready yet.
That list that you had up just a second ago, is law, is that one of the Dynamics things, or is that just a connector between Law Toolbox and Dynamics?
Which one was it? Loan toolbox?
Law Toolbox, it's a thing for lawyers to make sure that, you know, when one case thing changes dates, there's a whole bunch of dates that have to get rearranged,
That's what,
stuff
That's
like
what
that,
all
for
of those are.
compliance reasons and stuff.
So,
Yep. You can log into there anytime you
Yeah.
want and just look at all of the hundreds that are in there.
Yeah, they've got integrations into all types of applications.
Some are free, some cost something per month.
Yeah, for the
Some
ones that
most
usually,
trial.
they'll either say free trial.
You can link them up to your trial, you wanna set up a CRM trial, and then purchase or trial one of those and get in there and play with it and mess with it, you can do that too.
You know. And they do have the test drive, which gives you for,
Sort of fast way of taking the demo environment and building up like a little sample data thing that outlines your stuff.
When
And
you
know
say
what I mean?
fast,
As
that's all
opposed to having,
relative.
okay, we should have done
Yes.
this, let me do 18 different configurations, spend 4 hours, now I go in and do a demo for 1 hour.
If you've never done it before, it's gonna be tedious, but once you do it 2 or 3 times, you'll be able to do it pretty quick.
With your current customer base, have you seen traction with those apps?
yeah, yeah,
you did?
especially with industry-specific apps that have been built, like, you know, one of our partners who does Navision, they deal specifically with the food industry. So they built their little, what they call their bundle of services that they know that 90% of the industry utilizes, you know, these 4 things, and they put it into an app and they plug it in and they sell it and so forth, so. There's a lot of companies, that's what they're gearing most of our partners to do, is to build these apps that are ready-made, plug it in and go.
And have you seen business in you supporting that integration? So
Yes.
basically you have a Dynamics customer where you build based on their processes, and now there's a new app that makes things easier where they want
Right, a little
change the
add-on,
flow of
bit
it.
more
So you
funky.
can come in
Yep.
and do that.
And this all has to be SDK compliant, so it has to flow with the Microsoft, you know, ground floor coding, proprietary, compliant, etc. So it has to be available so that we can come in and help
Okay.
with
And,
that
and Microsoft
application.
will take an app that's built and vet it for you. There's a
Yes.
process to take it through Microsoft's, platform to have them vet it for you and test it
Yeah.
and certify.
Good.
Yes.
Is that something you also help with or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can help develop apps?
Yeah.
Like I said, we're in the process of, there's a couple of exciting ones that we're working on this year that we hope to have something solidified by the end of the year. Dana Point.
There.
and how many apps have you done in the past?
We've done our own apps internally, we've never done an app that's been put on AppSource yet, so we're in the process of that.
What kind of apps are they building? Is it all?
I'll tell you, one is very exciting from the perspective for brick and mortar stores like a Nordstrom and that sort of thing, where someone from China can do personal shopping at a Nordstrom store here in Southwest, for example. That will have other details to it, so it's just, but, you know, those things are in the works. Hate to talk about things before they're, done.
I feel the pain, it's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
a work in progress.
Yeah. It's exciting though.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just a couple more slides before we go to break. This is something that, whoops, sorry, walked away with my microphone. From a snapshot, there are 26 different products within D365. And again, from the accounting side, finance and operation, they all come from legacy systems like Solomon, Navision, Great Plains, that have now brought it into an online SaaS model. So it's called Business Central, and AX are now SaaS ERP solutions. But from a Dynamics 365 front end, which is pretty much everything under that CRM side of things, and the Power Automate, that's been built from scratch from Microsoft. And so they've taken best practices for the last 12, 13, 14, 15, I can't even count the years now since it started, getting old. So these are the things, and every quarter, so every April and every October, there are major updates that Microsoft are doing on Dynamics 365. And I'm not talking a couple of pages in, hey, these are the latest things that are being added. I'm talking about 120 pages worth of information that we have to read up on that are getting added to Dynamics 365 in functionality that is out of the box. It's reducing the amount of code that people have to do in Dynamics 365 and making it very configurable and very good to train people in companies to say, hey, I don't have a bunch of programmers or developers. I just need somebody who understands a little bit about technology and they can learn the tips and tricks of how to configure the system and maintain it. So it's creating a lot of opportunities out there for what we need to do. The investment that Microsoft are doing in LinkedIn is huge, which is why we've got a lot of those sales insights and these virtual things that are happening on the CRM side. And again, with what is happening from compliance and cybersecurity, that's adding enormous value to finance and operations as well. So that has to be in compliance for what we're doing and moving forward. And another thing, if you didn't know about Microsoft, if they start something and they label it something, in 2 weeks they may change the name of it, but it's the same thing that it was probably 6 months ago. A pure example is Flow. I mean, everybody's saying, oh, what's Flow? Oh, this is a lovely thing, we can connect to anything and do anything.
You always,
Now
you
it's
always
Power
lag a little
Automate.
bit, just enough time for you to get used to something and then,
Yeah. It's
Now we get it, now let's take it.
yeah.
just to keep us on our toes.
I noticed that everything that you've got listed here is like a business concept, as opposed to a specific functionality. For example, you know, if somebody goes through and starts talking about accounting software for things like that, I don't see anything that would have given me an indication that this is accounting software whatsoever. I see nothing that's general ledger, inventory management, order entry, accounts payable, any of those types of functionality. Is that built into one of these other
Yes.
business concepts?
Yeah.
Yes. So Business Central, AX, GP, Navision, Solomon, they're all ERP accounting packages. They include all of those things. And
Okay, so do I choose one of those, or can I pick and choose functionalities out of each one of those?
Yes.
So
Yes.
here's the thing. When you buy finance and operation, it's a license. Now there's different layers. You've got mid-market, which is generally your Business Central, which is in the cloud. So that's your new SaaS model for medium businesses accounting services from Microsoft. Business Central is the product. And what that comes from is the historical Navision on-premise product that Microsoft developed years ago that is now Business Central.
Okay.
From a GP and SL side, they're still very much on-prem solutions, so they're still available. And because Dynamics 365 has hybrid licensing, it does support on-premise accounting systems, and they still support Solomon and GP, believe it or not. AX is...
And is there some kind of connector to take that on-prem stuff into some of the cloud services or
Yeah.
something like that? Or
Yeah,
is
it's
it-
all hybrid
Or does it go
licensing.
through strictly on-prem or, there's a hybrid, okay.
It's a hybrid license,
Okay.
a subscription model, and it caters to both. AX is your enterprise finance and operation module. So that's what competing with the SAPs of the world, the bigger accounting systems, supply chain management, that's what your AX is for. That's your high-end product that Microsoft is supporting in the cloud. So for your accounting systems, it's the bottom four, and Business Central is the latest and greatest for medium businesses across the world. It's kind of replacing the GP path of transformation for most companies. The cost is incredible for these products compared to what is out in the marketplace for SaaS solutions. Business Central is crazy. If you think about an ERP system, QuickBooks is probably $60 a month if you're a small business to pay for a QuickBooks Online. Business Central is $70, and it's way more powerful than any QuickBooks system that's out there. It's got everything.
Are there restrictions on it, you know, like the QuickBooks stuff, you know, you can only have X number of
No.
records in customers or inventory or
No,
whatever?
it's usually, when you're looking at AX, it's more about functionality to say, I need to handle manufacturing, I need to handle supply chain management. Even though there are add-on modules for Business Central, like a manufacturing module to utilize, because you may not be at that enterprise level, you can buy it additionally to support that. AX is the one that comes with all of that big stuff.
What's the fraud protection? Are you familiar with that one?
I know, that was an
Fraud
interesting.
protection? Not too familiar, it's on the list, I have to read it.
That's one of the newer features for the commerce solution, right?
Yes.
That's
For the
part of the
commerce.
commerce fraud protection. It's part of the, so Microsoft
Yes.
just released this. It's part of the D365 commerce solution.
Retail, commerce.
Which was a break off from the old retail solution.
Yes.
So that this has been a kind of an evolution for Microsoft from D365 retail to now D365 commerce.
Yes.
So what does it do? Is it looking at transaction history and then it's flagging any
Yeah.
transactions that fall outside the pattern of the norm?
It's
Yeah.
AI SKU, so it's gonna use all your data and try to suggest you some fraud transactions, mostly retail, yeah.
Yeah, so that, you have to understand, Microsoft have taken, they used, 6 months ago, there was a talent module, which is now human resources. This is how they change names on you and get you very confused. I'm trying not to get you guys confused
This
as
is,
well.
is everybody in the room here a Microsoft partner? How many people are Microsoft partners?
How many people are not?
How many people are not? Okay.
Two
You're
running up.
an ISP.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
So you're a Microsoft partner then, if you're an ISV?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it just, and that's kind of what I was hoping to understand. How many people, just out of curiosity, how many people in this room are IMCP members? Okay, good. So the thing to understand, and Jody's right on about this, the amount of money that Microsoft is throwing into the D365 solutions and the pace of development that's going on with this right now is unprecedented. Microsoft, just so everybody also knows, and I don't know if you know this, but Microsoft is also hiring right now 1,000 people worldwide to sell the Dynamics 365 solution. 300 of them here in the US. And that's focused primarily where Microsoft does their direct selling on their enterprise and corporate clients. So it doesn't fit for those of us who focus in the SMB. There's no competition from that side of things. But that gives you some perspective on just how much money Microsoft is throwing into this from a development standpoint and also from a sales and marketing standpoint. It's unprecedented.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it
Never
makes
seen
sense.
this in the business application space. We've never seen Microsoft putting this much effort into this.
And it does make sense from Satya Nadella being the CEO now, and the
Yeah.
fact that he was the brainchild of the whole
CRM.
Microsoft Dynamics CRM side of things from back 2001 on. So.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, but as I say to people, we only are experts in what we do. We can't do everything for everybody, which is why we need IMCP and all their members to help each other with this, because there is such a lot to learn and everybody's taken a piece of it to become and have their expertise in it.
Do
But-
you,
okay.
do you as a silver certified partner get lists of who in your area has Dynamics or?
Not from
No.
Microsoft.
No. Microsoft does not share that.
That went away
Yeah.
about 5 years ago.
Yeah,
It used to be that.
Oh, yeah.
we used to
We
be
used
partner
to
account
be part of the
managed
CRM
all the
roundtable
time.
for years, and they would give us
They
leads
cut
every
that off.
week. And that stopped, well, I guess it's been longer than that.
It's been about 2.5
Since
years
about
that they've chopped all
2013.
that
That should
off.
have been good. Right?
It was nice when you had that support. I mean, we've been doing this a long time, but anyway.
Sorry, another
No,
question.
go ahead.
I know from the Azure ecosystem that when you do ISV co-sell ready, then the CSPs, the cloud solution providers, can sell a third party and make money on it.
Right.
Do they have the same thing for Dynamics in another way? Can you make money if you sell an ISVs? Because you have your clients using Dynamics,
Right.
and then there is this ecosystem of people building.
Right, so it really depends on the relationship that we have with the ISV directly. This is gonna have no effect on Microsoft whatsoever.
There's no
because-
Microsoft authorized transaction.
Okay, so it's not like a
That's really a
CSP.
partnership
No.
situation,
Okay.
and how you wanna set that up.
No,
If at all.
yeah,
It's, you know, our history has been more of a collaborative partner where we have not really, we don't pay people to do what we don't pay people for leads, for example. Or we don't charge people if we send them a lead. We like to do it more of a collaborative type of relationship where it's really for the benefit of the client to bring in extra knowledge to that.
If we want to leverage you, do we white label you, or we bring you in and you are your own entity?
We're willing
How do
to
you
work
typically
with,
like to work?
everybody's got a different personality, and we're willing to work with someone if it makes sense, but typically I'm saying we haven't been one to refer to get commission. We just don't, we haven't.
No, if I want to use you,
Then.
okay, typically, are you coming in as my representative, or are you coming in as HD Dynamics?
this depends on how you wanna work with us.
Depends on how you wanna work.
Everybody's
Okay, so
different.
you will work in either way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because
what I
some
was-
people want a one-stop shop, right? So if you're the one to get blamed by a client, by all means, we'll sit in the background.
Yeah, what I was thinking is more around being a reseller for Dynamics ISVs, because you have your customer base, right? You
Right.
might be working with customers in manufacturing, and customers in finance, customers in
Yeah, all
whatever.
sorts of things.
And then there are those ISVs building those apps, and then they can come to you and say, hey, who do you have as a manufacturing customer? Can you promote this and sell it to them?
That's
Certainly.
exactly
For a-
right.
For a 10-20%.
That's exactly our purpose of why we partner with people and keep that platform open. I mean, even in our own space, we're not experts in AX, we're not experts in Navision, or, certain areas, we might find a better Power BI partner than what we're capable of doing in our skill set. There are pieces of this puzzle that we want to partner with people with, because that's their expertise. We can't be everything to everybody, and to be cognizant of that and open to that, that's why these relationships are established.
Our strength from our experience really comes from understanding a company's technology environment currently, and really getting down to the nuts and bolts of their business processes and what their goals are. And that's really where our value comes in, especially with the business process flow. That whole concept, we were excited about that in 2013 when it was first released by Microsoft into the CRM world. Is business process flow really gives us an excuse to do what we already have always done, is what is the day in the life of your users, and what does management need to see from the data that those users input into the system, and really get a deep understanding of that, and then guide our clients down the path of best practice and how we implement that into CRM, field services, or whatever the case may be. So when it comes to specific specialties like freight, health industry, HR, anything, Power BI report, setting up that mechanism. We've got experience with Power BI because it's been around now for a couple of years, and so we're really familiar with that. But there are experts out there that know way more because they've built their practice around Power BI, or they've built it around Office 365 and that whole ecosystem, and that's not where we are per se as ultimate experts. So we're more of a business process company, and that's what we try to help adopt into Xero.
So I'm gonna end off, because this is a great example of where we all sit today, and I'm gonna tell you a little story here. So when I first started my career at a tender young age in Australia, I started ground floor, one of the first 8 employees when deregulation happened in telecommunications in Australia. So being one of the first 8 employees, I was charged with manning the phones in a call centre. I was a kid, I wanted to learn, understand what telecommunications was all about. And then I learnt the process. They taught us all about how, you know, mobile, radar, different transmission levels worked. And I mean, we're still talking Motorola brick phones here. You're lucky if you had a flip phone. If you wanted something mobile in your car, there was a big pole that they inserted, a giant microphone on your visor. That was your mobile phone. So eventually I ended up working for Sprint, who turned into Global One. So they were like a consortium of Sprint, Global, Deutsche Telekom and France Telecom. So we did all the international infrastructure for telcos all over the world. And what I learned back then, there was no email. Email just started on what they call X25 packets. Think of a FedEx plane carrying a parcel, flying from Australia to LA, and then the next day that same plane flying back and delivering your parcel. That was email in my day. And it's funny because you had to be patient. You sent an email, you had to wait a day till
It's
you got a
quicker than the
response.
mail, typically, unless you FedEx it.
So that was email. So as I grew in telecom over the years, we started developing freeways, what I call freeways. People go, what do you do for a living? And that just rolls over their head. I do, you know, telco infrastructure for global companies. I said, well, what I do is I actually design freeways. And what that means is I build 8-lane freeways going both ways, and I segment the traffic. I go, this is for data, this is for voice, this is for streaming, this is for fax machines, and these are for your voice calls. Now I design a whole highway system so headquarters of different corporations can talk to each other and the traffic doesn't get blocked. So with that, it's like I have to have a conversation with my client going, okay, what kind of data do you actually put down these pipes, or you want to put down these pipes as we develop all these channels for you?
Yeah, are the pipes the fiber optic cables?
Yes, they're my freeways. I call them my global freeways. I even use the example of bringing little motor cars in there one day for a client. But the fun part about that is you start having different conversations and learn how, when telecom started to grow and develop, it's like, what kind of data are you actually transmitting? What is that? So you start having this bigger conversation and go, well, why are you putting more video down than what you're doing voice? You know, where's your business going towards? Because you notice these things, because they want a bigger pipe for this. It's like, why? Why? It's the same with software. It's becoming a bigger and bigger conversation where people aren't just going, I need a Rolodex and automate it so I know what I'm doing, and my phone pings when I need an alert and I go and do my job and write it down on Post-it notes. Those days are gone. Everything now is on your cell phone. Everything is automated. Everybody knows what you're doing in your company, with or without your permission. They just do. And it's a little bit scary, but we also have to understand the concepts of the limitations and where we're growing from a conceptual standpoint, and having that conversation with your clients. But that's the fun part about this. It's ever changing. In October, when we have another conversation, there's going to be 20,000 more subjects to talk about in D365. But I just want to leave you with that, because I think it's really apt to see how this has changed since the day we started in D365. But after this, we'll come back and we'll talk about business processes and go through some conceptual examples for you. But we'll have a break now. We can have some donuts.
It will go on.